I am truly honored to be here at LBM. It's one of the best conferences, really, truly one of the best conferences that I go to. And I go to a lot from a content perspective. And the team, Rick and Mike and Jody and Michelle really do just such a fabulous job with this conference. Anyway, with, like Dina said, or Thea said, excuse me, this is a great group of young leaders, and I'm also excited to be on stage with them. Thank you, and thank you guys for joining me. This is super fun. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna watch a video, and it's fairly short and fun and informational at the same time. So here we go.
How do you walk in those shoes?
Maybe we could restructure.
Here's an idea. How about we restructure?
Yes, great idea, Joanna. So how do you manage the work-life balance? You like to bake? How about you handle the cake for Gina's birthday? Is work less of a priority for you now? Does your wife help with the kids? Wow, are you gonna eat all that yourself? Well, we shouldn't have too many men on the project. You know how that can be. I'm assuming you two can work together without getting catty.
And then I said, well, I didn't know that.
Look at you being funny. I didn't know men could be funny.
Okay, so that was just to kick us off, get us loosened up a little bit. We want a little bit of engagement here in our conversation today. This obviously is a QR code. We're gonna talk a little bit about discrimination, what discrimination means. And we're not really, in the first two panels, it kind of talked about women, but we're talking about people. We're talking about all kinds of discrimination. And really, when you think about the Equal Opportunity Office, when they talk about discrimination, they're talking about age, race, color, sex, pregnancy, lots of national ethnicity. So there's lots of different types of discrimination. So we're kind of going to be talking about that a little bit, and I'm going to have each one of the panelists define discrimination for us. Sally, kick us off.
Yeah, so as a white woman, I can't say that I have really faced a lot of discrimination. For me, what it truly means is to be an advocate for those who do face discrimination in the workplace, and to check my implicit biases. But to me, that means, passing over somebody for a promotion, or even, sitting in a room and not listening, like Jason talked about, not letting others bring their ideas to the table, for whatever reason we have, kind of instilled in us. I think in our industry, I've had a child, and I was in a different industry prior to that, and definitely faced that type of, there's comments about, oh, you're not going to be here for very much longer, or are you coming back to work, and those kinds of things. But in our industry, I really think things are getting better. There's definitely older customers who will tell me to smile more. And I usually double down and keep my work face on. And there's also those customers that think you're the receptionist on the phone. And let me tell you, people aren't very kind to the receptionist. So be kind to the person that you think is the receptionist. They might be the person who's selling you something. But for me, it really means checking my biases and being an advocate and an ally.
Yeah, awesome. Jenny?
Well, for me, means multiple things. I mean, I am a woman, a minority, so I have experienced and seen discrimination in work environments in many different ways. And I think, to me, it definitely means being judged, being feared prior to actually getting to know me. So something that you definitely said is being able to have an ally is super helpful, especially sitting in a lot of the tables where you feel comfortable speaking. Yeah, so to me, it just means feared. Be open to different cultures, different backgrounds, different genders, different sexual orientation, all of that.
You know, these are great points, and you guys are young and much younger than I am. How many of you in the room have children? Okay, so how many of you are taught by your children about new social norms? Oh my gosh, all of the time, right? And so these guys on the panel were teaching me things about, you know, how they look at discrimination and things that I hadn't really embraced before. And actually, CJ has a really strong point about, you know, what people coming before you, right, CJ? So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who people often read as a masked man, totally understandable. But and I've experienced, I would say, most of the discrimination that I've experienced as a gay person came from before I started working in this industry, in an interesting way. But I actually I found much less of that in my current job than I thought I would. You know, I came in thinking like this might be kind of hard, this is going to be kind of tough. But I've actually found a lot of that groundwork has been laid by the women who went before us, who like really were the first woman in the room, who really was like the first person to open that door. So I really feel like I've seen that cracked and been able to really start walking into those spaces, which has been such a blessing.
Yeah, awesome. So hopefully you guys got on the QR code and looked at the panel. And Al, if we can maybe, oops, nope, we can't. Kick off the, have you felt discriminated against in the past? Let's see. Only 8 people have voted. Oh, put the QR code back. Oh, that's me. Or no, that's you, Al. All right, so if we can get in there and get some votes. Now, I mean, like we talked about, discrimination comes in many different shapes, sizes, and forms. And I would imagine, and I'm really surprised that it was half and half, but I imagine that everybody has felt it a little bit in the past. I'm pretty impressed that a lot of people have not, and maybe you just ignore it really well. So there are 2 questions on this. All right, Al, I think maybe we can flip it. All right, there we got some more votes in there. Ooh, wow, 42, boom, just like that. Okay, so 61%, 62, let's round up. 62% said yes. How do we get a percent? How did we get 61.9? How did that happen? And then, yeah, so 38%, 0.10. All right, so the second question, have you discriminated against someone else in the past? And yeah, I think, unfortunately, because of our experiences, like Jason was talking about before, because of our experiences, sometimes it happens and you're not aware of it, and or you do it unintentionally, right? So discrimination can happen in a lot of different ways. So yeah, let's just flip that back to the QR code if you don't mind, Al. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other topics that we have. Fearing or moving away from things that are different from you is natural. So that's kind of, you know, what happens with the discrimination. It's human instinct. So CJ, I'm going to start with you. Tell me about how you have experienced that before.
People's fear?
Yeah, just how you feared something and moved away from it. So.
Well, I mean, I definitely was afeared of working at Ward Lumber, just because it was, you know, a male-dominated industry, and I was concerned about it. Ended up being the best move I ever did. But you know, a lot of those fears come from like preconceived biases, like, oh, I thought that was going to be a certain way, and it wasn't. And a lot of us deal with those things. Sometimes I think like, oh, this person's going to act a certain way towards me, and then they prove me wrong. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. So those are important things to keep in mind, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely experienced similar fear joining Kodiak. I had a complete culture shock moving from the DC area to Denver, two totally different worlds. So that's, I still struggle. Those of you that know me still struggle with Denver and how different it is from DC, but I definitely have tried to integrate myself to the community and try to learn as much from it as possible because that's part of why discrimination is such a big issue. We're not open to what's different than what we know. So I always try to learn more about where I'm at, ask questions, and try to be open to something that's unknown to me. So.
And as sort of younger generation, do you guys look to maybe social media to kind of figure out how to fit in? Where do you look for? Do you go online? Do you go to in-person communities? How do you guys look to kind of break down the barriers and remove yourself from any sort of discrimination?
Definitely social media.
Social media, yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple forums or multiple resources out there. TikTok is actually really big. You can look up for different interests in your location, and you'll be able to find a lot of different events or groups or a venue that you are interested in. And that's, yeah, we rely on TikTok a lot now.
And I think sometimes that social media gets that bad rap, right? Like the kids, they're learning things from social media. You know, I mean, but really there's so much educational content and there are so many voices that have used the platform in a good way to really be educational and really allow me to sit back and listen and learn.
There's that age gap. I've never been on TikTok before. Should I not admit that?
Hey, as much as I also use these platforms, I connect more with in-person groups. That's just me. So I've always reached out to LGBT groups and new communities I moved to. That's something that's important to me personally. And there's other great groups in every area that can support you. So.
Go ahead, Sally.
Yeah, for me, when you sent that question over and I read it, I immediately thought of this conference. Because I am still such a newbie in the industry, if you read my bio, I've only been in the LBM world for about 2.5 years. That thought of seniority, like I don't think I'm the most senior person to represent Wilson Lumber at this conference. And fortunately for me, we have a great culture and a great company, and one of our core values is challenge yourself to grow. And that's exactly what the leadership team did, and they made it possible for me to be up here and have some training to be able to speak at this conference. So, but I'm an extroverted person, but there's definitely that fear of getting up here and saying the wrong thing. Running away from that would have been a lot easier.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks.
So no fears. Okay, so now let's get real. I think this will kind of help people understand how, some of the other people in the room understand how to manage, your generation. But tell me about a time when you've had to balance your feelings and emotions based off of, this discussion. So let's start with you, Jenny.
Oh. But actually, a little brag, but I think I'm definitely really good at balancing my emotions in the workplace. And actually, I've been accused of being emotionless, maybe, because I'm very much a logical thinker. However, I've definitely been faced with times where I was with a leader that was very condescending. So it definitely tested my temper. But I had to kind of be professional in the moment, and it happened actually in front of a vendor. So it was very not only demeaning, but also very embarrassing at the point in time. However, I had to keep my cool and focus on what the meeting was about. Yeah, and it was tough, but again, that logical instinct kind of overrides the emotion for me. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm definitely more logical, so I'm able to pull back the emotion and kind of stay straight.
Any takeaway you can offer the group on what not to do in front of vendors?
Keep your cool. I mean,
No. I mean, if from your leader's standpoint, whoever was managing you.
of course. I mean, be a team. Whoever is sitting, it doesn't matter what level the person that's sitting next to you is, you're part of the same team. So you need to sing the same song. And that's how people give respect to everybody in the room, if you all align. So
Yeah, well said.
I feel like for me, listening to the previous speakers talk about women leading like a man, I'm very much guilty of that at times, for sure. And it's hard to adjust, and my personality runs hot. So, if something comes up to here, I'm going to meet it, and that's not always the most productive way. And it's taken some time and some measuring to pull back and try and de-escalate situations and be more, try and relate to people at the level you can meet them at. That's down here, not up here.
CJ, do you think that's representative of a lot of your peers, your age? And do you think there's a way for leadership to manage people that have that type of personality?
I think there is. I think that the running hot is so immediate reaction, and that just trying to find that core between people is really the way.
I think for me, I don't know about anybody else, I cry when I'm angry. That's how I show my anger. So, I certainly cry when I'm sad, but I've had multiple former female bosses discredit me for that, or call me emotional, some of those keywords you saw up on the screen earlier, and really discount me, because that's my immediate reaction when I have that anger feeling, or feel like something's not right, or those kinds of things. And so, I tried really hard for a long time to suppress that. And lots of therapy and lots of self-improvement trainings and things like that have helped me understand that's an emotion and that's not a bad thing. But maybe, giving me 5 minutes to run to the restroom and collect myself, and then we can have that conversation further, has been very helpful. We also at Wilson Lumber have a company-wide training program, and we really learn how each other communicates on our team. We do DISC assessments and things like that. And so I think really knowing how your team interacts and works best together is only going to help you be more productive. I think it's counterintuitive to not do those things.
Awesome. So how do you think the next generation is different, and how should the leaders in the room think about that in how they're attracting and retaining their employees?
So I know as a millennial, I hate hearing all those snarky comments about my generation. I think if you want to hire us, you got to start acting like we can.
What are some of those snarky comments?
Avocado toast comes to mind, and what are some other? Millennials don't want to work, and all of those things. And you hear them about the next generation too, Gen Z, and I think even for me looking forward to Gen Z, they've got it figured out. They have stuff figured out already that I have only figured out as of the most recent 3 years. Work-life balance, mental health, all of those things that they've got, boundaries, they've got it figured out, and they know what they want out of a career. And it's not just work, and it's not just a paycheck. They want something that they can care about and really get behind.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we've seen multiple generational changes of how people are in the workplace, and I am really looking forward to actually Gen Z. I know they're starting to join the workforce, but they have definitely set boundaries for themselves, and they have a lot of self-respect, and then they demand self-respect, which I think is something that generations previous, myself included, I'm part of also a millennial, and I've heard all the different things. But I think the older generations were used to just working and putting your head down, and if you get promoted, you get promoted, but not really asking for it. And I think the younger generations are really stepping forward because I think we're aware that we have the knowledge and we can add value, and we just want you to see that. And now we're speaking up for ourselves, and I think that's something that hasn't happened in generations in the past.
And as an HR professional, Jenny, and what do you see as best practices to attract the Gen Z generation?
Yeah, so that's actually huge for HR. But definitely employee experience is huge in how you attract the newer generations, because they want the work-life balance, and they want to be able to, they want to know that you as the employer care not only about the work that they are providing, but also that you care for them as a human being. So being able to provide wellness programs or any work-life balance, flexibility. I mean, there's multiple things that you can provide, and I think those are very attractive to the younger generations. And I know we had to learn a lot of things during COVID, and it made us learn that some jobs can be remote. I think you're gonna see a lot more of that, unfortunately, and I know it's really hard for our industry, but we're gonna see a lot of movement in that direction than we have in the past, especially with AI and how much we can utilize it, which I think our industry is slowly tapping into.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be 20 and 30-year-olds wanting to join the workforce, no matter what you call their generation. There's always going to be younger folks who are coming in and forcing everybody to change. And I think, you know, the demands of millennials and the demands of Gen Z are going to be a little different. I read something just the other day, and I wish I could remember the article, but millennials have had like terrible economic things happen, right? And they're like at pivotal points that have like decreased overall average earnings, right? And so millennials are looking for things like really good training, security, things like that, kind of reflecting back, you know, whatever their professional trauma is. So that's what comes to mind for me.
Actually, it's funny you say that, because I just had this conversation last night or earlier today. Can't keep track of time. But millennials, we joined the workforce right at the first recession in 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had it rough.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, you know, to kind of cap on what they've said, especially like Jenny with the benefits, you know, volunteer PTO, those kinds of things, you know, showing that you care for the community and that you want your workforce to care for the community as well, are really beneficial. I'm still ready for the whole, you know, family leave to be a norm and not a perk. But I think we're getting there.
What is your ideal, what is your ideal work culture?
The culture that I'm working in now, and I'm not saying that just because my boss is in the room, I really did not expect the work culture to be what it is for me. It's a people over profit culture, and that's huge. I think you can have the best pay and the best benefits, and people can still hate coming to work. So I think the fact that our culture really, you know, my boss likes to say to me, Russ likes to say, like, what matters, what's going on at home matters more than what's going on here. But he also shows it, and I think that's too a big thing for leaders. Like, when you're on vacation, be on vacation with your family. Don't be glued to your email. This is for all of us involved, but don't be glued to your email. Be out of the office and show the people you work with that it's okay to be out of the office.
You just mentioned family leave, and I wanted to mention that. I was speaking about a coworker who went out on paternity for a while in casual conversation with my mother, and she was like, paternity, can you define that for me? She had never heard of paternity leave, and like that was like a completely new concept for her. So it's just amazing how far we've come with trying to create those sort of balances for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add to that, Jenny? What's your perfect culture?
I mean, I have a very similar culture. I think being able to be your true self and present that at your place of employment is really important, and being respected for that. And yeah, I mean, my boss isn't here, so I can say that, but I can be honest. Our work, our people I work with definitely are very focused on you as a person. We play well together. It's a very open, play hard, work hard environment, and I don't think I would have stayed in Denver this long if it had been any different. And I think I am in kind of my perfect work environment.
Wow, look at this. What a great. So what you just said just made me think of this, and I texted it to somebody, so I found it. The best, and this just thinks about paternity and maternity and how maternity leave can put somebody behind. Experience is such a huge thing when you're young. So the best evidence we have, and I pulled this from something, which is from the UK, suggests that one lost year of employment in your early 20s right out of college results in 13 to 21% lower productivity and wages 20 years later. So they're showing, so if you miss.
And that happened to a lot of people my age who started late
exactly.
because things were
Couldn't
weird.
get in, yeah. Okay, so we're going to have a speed round, and then we'll open up for questions. But before we go to the speed round, this is a commercial that's Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from LBS Strategies. I love the Christmas background. Okay, speed round. So one word or very short answers. And Christy presented this, which was kind of funny. Okay, name one team building event that is not golf.
Pottery class.
Charity event, volunteer day.
Tell me the year that a pay gap will no longer exist.
When my 6-year-old is president.
Ooh.
I mean, really, I hope it's 2024, but yeah.
Well, 4 is predicted over 100 years. So I'm going to go 50, 2073.
I'm going to say 2069 because that's the year the Vulcans are going to show up.
One person, program, company you look to for guidance on sensitive topics.
I really enjoy Sarah Robb O'Hagan. She is not in our industry. She's the CEO of Exos, but she does a really good job of being a female leader and a female CEO and kind of presenting herself that way. So,
I can't say I have one. I think I do a lot of research, TED Talks, Google.
love a TED Talk.
Sappy answer. My grandmother, she was a female pilot and a very special person.
That's awesome. What company benefit, feature, incentive is the most attractive to bring on new young talent?
I think I said it earlier, but culture, and if I have to narrow it down to one benefit, I think having volunteer PTO time.
Definitely culture. I would say parental leave. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the PTO is really important. You already said that, but it's important.
Well, thank you for this inspired conversation, you guys, and I'll welcome questions from the audience. Go ahead, Jay.
Can you share more about volunteer PTO, how it's structured, and how it's used?
Okay,
Sure.
so he's asking about sharing details on volunteer PTO and how it's structured.
So at Wilson Lumber, it's a new feature for us. I'm not HR, so if they're watching this and I've spoken out of turn, just come talk to me later. But the way we have it is we have a set number of hours that well, let me back up. So Wilson Lumber has some community care partners. We have a global community care partner. It's a village in Guatemala that we visit 3 times a year. So, and then we also have a community partner that we partner with for 2 years within Huntsville. And this last cycle, it's been Next Step Farms, which is an adult day program or a day program for adults with special needs. And so our volunteer PTO is we're able to use that to go and help Next Step Farms or to go with the team to Guatemala. And so I know there are other, Jenny may be able to speak to this more, there's other type programs out there that as long as it's, a verified nonprofit or, things like that, you get it kind of worked with through HR, you're allowed to use that time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of similar programs. I think we, as a company, we do volunteer at different charities, and we just pick a day, ask people to volunteer, and, you know, we pay them for the day. We don't necessarily have a written out program, but we fully support participating in charity events, and we do a lot of those throughout the year. And anybody who is, you know, our employees who are interested in joining, they can join, still get paid, so.
One more question, and then I think we're out of time. I think somebody else had their hand up somewhere over here. No? Making it up. All right, well, thank you all for your time and attention, and thank you guys.
Thank you, Jennifer.